I'm Adrienne Rose.
I am Kane Roselle.
And I'm the art.
And I am the science
of transformation.
And we are Coast to Coach.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am Adrienne Rose, and I am the art.
And my name is Kane Roselle, and I am the science of transformation. We are Coast to Coach. Welcome.
And we have Mr. Brandon Turner here today. Welcome, Brandon.
Hi, thanks for having me, you two.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. We are grateful. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Brandon Turner. I am from Central New Hampshire, about an hour north of Boston. And I am a financial coach. I specialize with people in addiction recovery, but I will accept anybody. Also a life coach. And some hobbies, I like to read. I'm into spiritual studies. I like music. And I'm a husband and a father of two. In a nutshell.
That is a nutshell. There's so much that can be said about all of that stuff.
For sure.
So how long you been into this kind of work?
Coaching?
Yeah.
Well, I got my first coach, it was about a year and a half ago, and it was kind of interesting how it came about. So if there's anybody listening that's in recovery right now, I had done the 12 steps, and I'd been sober for quite a bit of time. And I kind of hit this point where it was like, now what? What's next, sort of thing. And there's a little bit of a barrier in the mind of the alcoholic or the addict where I was experiencing this longing for more, and I thought that I was like a problem, or my thinking was a problem for wanting more out of life. Because for the addict or the alcoholic, it's like more is a problem. It's led to bad decisions and sort of undesirable behavior in the past, and now I can't possibly have more out of life. I don't deserve more out of life. So I got my first coach about a year and a half ago, and I definitely became addicted to that, you could say, but it was a healthy addiction.
Sure.
Borderline obsessive, but a good kind, because it was something unlike anything that I experienced in school or from parents or from peers or from really anything. So because I had such a great experience with a coach, it was great. If anybody's interested in looking him up, his name is Jesse Harless. He has a book out called Smash Your Comfort Zone with Cold Showers.
Nice.
Yeah, great guy. He was my coach, and I fell in love with that process to a degree where it's like, wow, I can't imagine not doing this myself. Like I got so much value out of the experience that I wanted to pass that along to other people as well.
That's awesome. Good for you. Kane and I have had similar experiences. I worked with many coaches, and you have a book as well, don't you?
Yep, Personal Finance for People in Addiction Recovery. And you don't have to be in addiction recovery to get some value out of that. Anybody can read that and get something from it.
Sure. Yeah. And thank you for doing that. I've shared before that I have a history as well. I've been sober from alcohol over 10 years. I lost my mother to alcoholism. And so it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And I believe that the 12 steps, I mean, in reality, whether people have an addiction or not, it's just a way of life. In fact, Mary Morrissey, who's Kane and I's main mentor, her mentor, who is also the mentor of Wayne Dyer and Les Brown, so the three of them studied together back in the 70s. His name was Jack Boland, and all of his work was based on the 12 steps. And it's actually, it's so true, right? That lots of times for many people, not at all, some people are lifelong AAers and A'ers, and it's a great journey for them. But there does come a point where it's like you're ready for something new. So did you know when there was a moment that, okay, I'm just looking for something different, something new? That was there a particular moment where that happened, or was it gradual?
I would say a little bit of both. I was walking around with that feeling of that discontent, and it's a it's a big phrase in the big book, the restless, irritable, and discontent. But it's there to tell you something, from my experience. That discontent is there as a signal that, you got to do some readjusting. And it came to a point where and it's nothing against anonymous self-help groups. So I just couldn't imagine doing that for the rest of my life, just going to a meeting and, sticking to the same old stuff. The big thing was just accepting that I was feeling that and that it was okay to do something about it. That was the big thing. That was the defining moment, I believe, when I just accepted that I was feeling this discontent and that I wasn't a bad person for feeling it. And there was nothing I was doing wrong necessarily.
What is the main message that you want to spread to the world?
That is a broad question, my friend.
With a big old brush to paint it with.
Yeah, right. The main message, I think, and this is only from my own experience because, and not everybody's, dealing with the same types of problems that I was in the same way, but I think if I had to wrap it up, I think deep down we all just want to be ourselves. We're all born with unique abilities, strength, certain strengths, certain things that we can do to contribute to the greater good. And unfortunately, the system is set up in such a way to where we spend a lot of time sort of building these barriers through public school and some of the various content that we take in, and we build this character to sort of show the world, and it's not always, at least in my experience, it wasn't 100% truthful. And I think deep down, if we can just be ourselves and to find our strengths and have some goals that we can commit to bring out the best in ourselves to contribute to the greater good, I think that is my main message, is to just be yourself. And then once that guard just comes down and you can do that without caring about what other people think, to me, that is as spiritual as it gets. That's beyond any practice that you can adopt.
And there's no question either, because I know I noticed, when I got out of grade school, and I went on into my adult life, I was really almost ashamed at the humanity that I encountered, because I found that the strong ethics and being yourself and all that, but without ego, because it's not really about ego, and it's all about me and being me, and it's not really about that. But I was really surprised at how ill-prepared the rest of the world was, because most people just don't think that way. And certainly that made me ill-prepared for the world.
Mm. No, for sure. I don't think we're well prepared for the world in general. I don't think school really does a good job of doing that. School kind of teaches us to sell out who we really are in exchange for a secure job with, benefits and sort of settling for someone else's dream. And I feel like the first thing that we need to do is to find ourselves. And when we're tapped into that, what we are at the deepest level, it's sort of all that stuff falls into place. We are prepared to react the way that we know how to solve problems in alignment with who we are. And then when we know who we are, we know what we want. And then when we know what we want, it adds energy, and then we're able to add value and we're able to contribute. And it seems like everything just falls in line. When we know who we are, we accept it, and we can be ourselves without caring about judgment from the outside world. And it's a hard practice because, like you said, it can be a harsh world out there, and we have energies to protect, and we have reputation to protect, and we do need to protect ourselves to a certain degree. And finding that line, that threshold of where this is what I struggled with anyway, where I can protect myself without being too aggressive. Because I did that for a long time. Like I would, that's how I protected myself, was that I had this big shell. You know, I'm a Cancer too. So it's like, I have this protective shell,
Yeah.
in this hard cover that I show the world in order for them to not take my energy.
Sure. I think that's a great message too. I mean, that's a big part of what I do in coaching, is really help people, right? Who are they? What are they called to do? Because I look at it, it's like this puzzle, right? We all have this unique part to play. But of course, like the two of you said, if there's many things that may stop people from doing that, and really that's the key to freedom, I believe, is so I think that's a beautiful message. Thank you for sharing that message. And then, is there a particularly like powerful part of your story that led you to that?
Yeah, I would say virtually the whole thing. You know, I started when I was a kid. Like I was, you know, deeply empathic, and things were like I could just feel energy so deeply that I wouldn't even leave the house sometimes, like as a kid, because you can just feel the world's pain. But and it's been a process. I would say I've had this front on up until I was like 30 years old. 31. I'm 33 now, and like these past 2 years, I've really been working on, you know, with the coach. I've been really working on letting that stage character fall away, and accepting who I am, to show the world, so that, and when I go through that process, I can help other people do the same thing. And I think that's all what we're really longing for, you know, deep down. So there's that moment, the past 2 years with a coach, is really what changed it all for me.
And I do find too, much what you're saying is it comes down to freedom. You know, on one level, there's no such thing as freedom in the sense that we are all functioning within a greater whole. So society, biology, ecosystems, whatever. So your actions are directly tied to other things. However, our ultimate freedom is our decision whether we respond or react, and what that's going to look like. And so, in the same way, with empathic abilities, or if you're like me and you're just like super logical, kind of dry, precision engineer type, but it's taking whatever your strengths is and figuring out how you want to apply those to any given situation. That's the freedom. And of course, choosing the things, right, that you want to have as obligations in your life, but of course not making it feel like an obligation. Otherwise, you may not be living. What do you think about that in terms of freedom?
That's a great segue, because to me, freedom, there may be some listeners right now, you know who you are, that may disagree with me, but there's an internal freedom and an external freedom to me, and they're like symbiotic, if you will. We can experience that internal freedom at any time, but money can certainly get a lot of freedom. The power of choice, and that's, I've always been very, very fond of the topic of finance and money, and really big into macroeconomics, and just, you know, the psychology behind what drives market cycles, and what drives people to make more money, and why some people, you know, don't make a lot of it. And for me, it buys freedom. It really does. And this is borderline controversial, but I love kind of straddling this line. This guy, he's not a very nice guy, but he's a very successful man. Dan Pena, he says, if you don't think money can buy happiness, then you don't know where to shop. That's what he says. And it's interesting, because I would disagree that it doesn't buy you happiness, but it can get you freedom, for sure. You know, if you have money put away, you're not obligated to go work overtime because you're buying things you don't need or whatever it is, you know. So I believe that to experience that kind of freedom, the release needs to come from the inside first. And that's a focal point of my book.
That's awesome. I totally get that. Even Zig Ziglar says, right, that money is not the most important thing in the world, but it's almost as important as oxygen.
Yeah.
Adrian had taught me this one, and I don't know if you got it from Morrissey or if it was one that you just knew, but you always tell me that people don't love money necessarily, but it's the freedom that it symbolizes. And it's interesting. I was just reading a book last night. It came out in 1933. It's called Riches Manifest, and the idea there was that money is kind of like a symbol for freedom exchange, if you will. And of course, all freedom, all everything comes from God. So who are you really not to invite freedom and prosperity into your life? You know, things cost money to buy, so it is what it is. And of course, you know, we always say that that's one of the ways that you do your good in the world. In the book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, he says, how much use are you if you're poor? And on the one hand, you can look at it from a philanthropic standpoint and say, well, how are you giving your time? How are you giving your talents? So there is that element of it. But when people are in survival, you don't help them just by giving them a pep talk. They need more than that because their mindset is that of, well, is that going to put food on my table? Is that going to help my children? Is that going to help them from getting diseased or infected in some way? And so money is a really important thing, I think, that needs to be talked about, needs to be appreciated, not so that we can be greedy with our Lamborghinis and mansions and what have you, but really in a way that comes from the heart so that you're using it as a tool in a skillful way. No different than any other tool. You know, a handgun is a common discussion, you know. In the hands of an evil person, it's a weapon of mass destruction. It really is. You know, but what do they say? Like, to stop a bad guy with a gun? Oftentimes it takes a good guy with a gun. And so here it is, not to be pro or anti-gun, but in this example, you can see that it's a tool. It depends on how you use it. But money on its own is not the problem. What I found is that money is an amplifier. Whatever's on the inside of you, it gives you more ability to do that. And so if you prefer to be greedy and walk on the backs of other people or whatever, you're going to have the wealth, power, and influence to do that even better than you did before. And obviously, conversely, if you're a big giver and you just love helping people and starting charities and going places and volunteering your time, oh, you could do that so much easier when you have money. But I think one of the things that happens, and I think this is going to be a really interesting discussion, a lot of people, because riches come so fast when they do, they're not ready for them. What do you two think about that?
I agree because, I mean, a lot of people know that, I think the stat is crazy, like 80% of lottery winners go bankrupt within 5 years. Why? Because they're not prepared for that influx of money. I personally have friends that were multimillionaires and they won like in Las Vegas, they don't do lottery, they're in the slot machines and they won. And it just was like cherry on the cake. And they gave a lot of it away because they were ready for that type of abundance. Right. But it's so true that it absolutely is an amplifier. And us being coaches, you know, I have a mantra that's actually right in front of me that says, money is the direct symbol of the impact I make in the world. I love money because in reality, money itself, I don't love, but I love helping this world. And just like you said, Kane, I love what it represents. Absolutely. So Brandon, in teaching money, just curious, was there a particular piece of information? And I'm sure I can tell you've studied a lot, obviously, to get to where you are. But just for the listeners, is there anything in particular that you studied that just really helped you catapult in the area of finances?
Yeah, I mean, I've covered everything from, you know, Dave Ramsey to Robert Kiyosaki, Grant Cardone. I think the game changer for me was because, and I cover this in my book, I'm dead honest in my book about how I was just working my life away trying to pay off all this debt that I had acquired while in addiction. And I just didn't feel like I deserved any of it. Like I felt like I owed it all to my creditors, and I really didn't like my job. And so life just really didn't have the same meaning. So I think the pivoting point, because I did pay off all my consumer debt, and then I had this really, really like sort of depressing feeling. I was like, wow, that was not what I thought I was going to experience. You know, you see these people with this debt-free scream on Dave Ramsey's show, and um, it's not to say that paying off debt is a bad thing or it's a good thing or whatever, but for me, and this is what I try to do when I work with my clients, is that the goal has to have meaning. My goal to be out of debt did not have any meaning other than I wouldn't owe any money. So there was no substance behind the money. There was no reason for it. So what changed all that for me was actually after I had gotten out of consumer debt, and I read this book called Spiritual Economics, which really tapped into what you both had just said about money and what it can do, and the importance of the mindset behind the person accruing it, and what abundance really means. It's not about being rich and having that Lamborghini. It's how you can contribute to the world using that. And it is the best book I've ever read as far as money and limiting beliefs. And now when I have a financial goal, I used to write out the actual number, like I want this much money by this amount of time. Now I don't even look at the numbers. What do I have? Who do I have to become, and who do I have to help, and how much in order to get that money? And I write that down as my goal. So the numbers aren't even part of the equation. If they come, great. If they don't, maybe I didn't add enough value.
That's awesome. I love that. And I just want to chime in too, and I hear both of you, but I also think, that the Lamborghini, right, it's not necessarily a bad thing either for certain people, because if that raises your vibration and you just love getting in that car, like me, for example, it's a spiritual principle. I really want a convertible Jaguar, like the 10-cylinder, beautiful. So anytime I walk by it, I literally, like if I see one on the road or walk by one parked, I literally bless it, and I bless its owner. And because I know one day I want one, because I love the feeling, right, when I get in it. And I think it's a balance of doing things. But I think for many people, like some people like the expensive clothes because it really just makes us feel good. And I think that's okay as well for people, right? And it's a balance of always doing good also with it, because it's not just about us. It's about others. But I just wanted to chime in there because I think it's important for some people, that having things that make us feel good because we've worked for them is not a bad thing either. What do you guys think of that?
At the risk of getting too deep for the allotted time. So check this out, right? We all kind of start off on the bottom in the sense that, you're born and you don't know anything. And we work our way up. But the way that I see this whole thing of ascension is it really is moving towards higher and higher domains of awareness through giving, through this and through that. So the way I see it is when you're able to do so much good in the world that you're able to afford these kinds of things like we're discussing, you are in a lot of ways moving towards godhood, because nobody can give greater than God. Nobody can make worlds that we know of. Or galaxies, or create something out of nothing. And so nobody, to me, experiences life like God does through having all of us. And so as each one of us goes through the ranks from having nothing to gaining and gaining and gaining and doing better, so long as you do it within the spirit of your core values, and that you are doing things in the favor of making the world a better place. When we test our dream, one of our questions is there room in this dream for other people? Is there good in this dream for others? So long as you're moving up the ascension ladder, I see it as a sign of godlyhood, really. Not because you are God in an egotistical way, and I'm certainly not a nihilist or anything. However, it really is like handling the power that's coming to you and how you handle it. Are you ready for it? I love that you brought up the lottery things. That's such a good example of things that happen when we are not ready for all of the muscle that comes to us.
Oh, I love that, and I love that you chimed in with the Lamborghini and kind of gave us a different angle of looking at that, because that, you know, that was a symbol of one of my limiting beliefs. You know, sports cars maybe aren't good. You know, once you put that label on it, you know, this is good or this is bad. It's like, you know, things get misconstrued. But you know, I love taking my wife out to expensive dinners. I don't
Yeah.
know why, and I just love the feeling of it. You know, because I spend a lot of time in jeans, and you know, I'm a sort of a blue collar worker. Though I am a real estate investor as well, and like to get cleaned up and to go out somewhere nice. It's like, you know, once every month or two. It's like that experience. For some reason, I just absolutely love it. And you know, I think everybody's got a part of them that really likes, you know, this is America. You know, people like nice things.
Yeah.
And that's a great point, that, you know, no matter what it is, it's not good or bad. It all depends on the meaning of the person buying it.
There's another point to it as well, and that is that you don't understand the value of something until you have it and you surrender it. So if you're broke all the time, you'll always think that money's going to solve your problems, which is why I think it was the Buddha, or no, it might have been the Dalai Lama. There was a quote, I cannot remember who it was, but they were asked, like, would you rather teach rich people or poor people? And they easily said rich people, because they know that money doesn't solve their problems. And so it is as you move, because you know that when you pass, none of this comes with you. All right. However, for you to really know the value of a thing, that's why we say to have loved and lost is better than to not have loved at all. And there's so much power behind that, because you teach and you learn through this temporary existence of having anything. And so when you have the big house, you have the nice cars, you have all of this stuff, at one point you surrender it, okay? You take the lessons of that. Because from my belief, we are here to experience as much as we can, to get all of the learning that we can. When I think about having like the $3,000 guitar that I've always wanted, I imagine myself like, am I being greedy, or is this going to give me more life? And I'm like, well, easy, duh. It's going to give me more life, because I see myself playing this thing. And not that I can't produce beautiful music on other guitars, but I have always wanted this thing, right? So what I'm really craving is the experience of having this nice thing that I worked really hard for. And one day it too will be surrendered. And that is okay. That is perfectly okay. So I just wanted to interject that point.
That's beautiful. Yeah, Dr. Wayne Dyer, he used to keep a suit in his closet with the pockets cut out to remind himself he wasn't taking it with him. Right. And of course, he was very, very, very successful. And at one point, he gave away all of his, he called his secretary and gave away all of his belongings. And she was like, excuse me. And he said it was the most freeing thing he basically ever did. That was only a few years before he passed away. So, well, this has been a wonderful conversation, Brandon. You're incredible. And I know that there's going to be quite a few people who would just love to work with you. You have such brilliant talent and knowledge and a specialty that's so needed in this world. So how can people best get in touch with you?
Depending on when you hear this, I'm on a 90-day commitment of no social media. So you will not find me on there right now. You can find me on LinkedIn, because I don't abuse that. But
For you.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me at my website. It's www.moneymatterspersonalfinance.com. You can see some of the things there, like my book link is there, and some free stuff, worksheets, and just things to kind of probe your mind if you want to just play with those first. Or if you like what you've heard enough to contact me directly, you can contact me via email at blturner5656@gmail.com. And that's it.
All right, Adrian. Can you say it?
I can try.
Let's hear it. All right, drum roll, please.
Coast to coached.
Yahoo! You did it.
I think there's still a ST at the end, but almost, yes.
That was
Yes.
pretty close. That was
I
good.
love it.
I didn't notice it. I listen to things very closely when it's coming through my ears. I didn't hear no mistakes. Nothing.
Thank you. I had to really think on that one.
I saw you.
Yes. Yeah, we finish every episode with me laughing at myself, us laughing at me, because I think it's so important. And since I can't say that quite perfectly, I think it's a great way to end.
I love it.
Thank you so much, everybody. This was a great week. Brandon, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to accommodate us and give our listeners, the benefit of your experience and your wisdom.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me.
And Adrian,
Absolutely.
thank you as always. I look forward to doing our episodes every week.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Love you all.